In today's age, the offensive side of the ball dominates the league in many different ways. From guys like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson lighting it up from three, to guys like Giannis and LeBron, who use their bodies to get easy buckets down low, and even to guys like Joel Embiid and James Harden, who have taken shot creation to another level. And with constant advancements in stats each year, we can't expect this era of offensive change to slow down anytime soon. See, every team wants to get their hands on the next Steph or Giannis, because having a generational talent running your offense isn't something that can be taken for granted. And the league loves it because the fans love it. See, fans, young and old, love when players are pulling off Euro step dunks from beyond the free throw line, or shooting from distances that would have you benched 10 to 20 years ago. And along with that, it's been great for the league from an on-court standpoint, as multiple offensive stats are peaking and show no signs of slowing down. See, it's hard to believe, but the NBA wasn't always known for the elite offenses, or at least not in the way that we are used to. But for a period of time, scoring the basketball in the NBA was at a historic low, something unlike the league has ever seen. And forever, we will know this notorious era as Deadball.
In an era that we kind of grew up in, when you make your move and the hand is there and you try to reset, the hand is still on you, so you're not allowed to look.
The biggest thing on most Americans' minds in 1999 was probably the attempt at impeaching the president, or maybe NASA trying to send things to Mars. But regardless of how those things turned out, 1999 did send us into the new century with things we had never seen before in the basketball world. At least in basketball terms, it seemed like the only things being sent away to Mars were the fast offenses that we knew and loved. See, throughout the 90s, there was a bigger national craze in America. It was called Michael Jordan. By the end of the decade, Jordan had 6 championships and 6 finals MVPs, on top of a nearly 79% win percentage in his full seasons from 90 to 98, including 72 wins in 96, and he won a ring in every one of those full seasons. He was known as the GOAT, and for good reason, but he couldn't take all the credit for those Chicago rings. Players like Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, and Tony Kukoc, and others deserve some of the praise. But the man behind it all was head coach Phil Jackson. He designed a triangle offense to put ISO players with high IQ in a position to dominate. And he was lucky Jordan was the best player, probably ever, for this system. See, Phil Jackson's offense was not only effective, but unique and new. And in the 80s, such a slow yet smart approach to offense would have stood out like a sore thumb. But Phil Jackson was different, and he made the league know it. In the 90s, everyone wanted a piece of the Bulls, so like the old saying goes, if you can't beat them, join them. So they joined them and started using the same offenses Chicago was known for. And this wasn't new either. The NBA has been full of followers for years. When Celtics coach Red Auerbach used the first look strategy in the late 50s and then led the league in attempts, points, and shooting percentage, the NBA took notice. Every season since Boston won the championship in 1957, the league average field goal attempts did not go below 99 until the 70s, right when Boston stopped winning. This is just one example, but the earliest and maybe most important in NBA history. Jordan retired for the second time following the 98 season and left the door wide open for the rest of the NBA trying to be the next dynasty. And after seeing how well Jackson's system worked for the Bulls throughout the 90s, many teams took the strategy of creating space for the best ISO players to run their offense. But what came of this season was, by the numbers, the worst offensive season in NBA history. Now, the problem with trying to copy the greatest team of all time is that nobody had the greatest player of all time to do it with. See, Phil Jackson's strategy was built on high IQ and relied on elite talent. It happened that Jordan was arguably the only player in history who could fill this role as well as he did. And it also happened that his supporting cast was ideal for him. If those things didn't line up, the Bulls wouldn't be what they are today. The league learned that the hard way, and from the look of things, they got the memo. Pace was back up to around 93 possessions, and shooting was up to nearly the same as it was in 98. It was still nothing great and on the lower end of league history, but it was trending in the right direction. Then Phil Jackson came back, and he came back with the dynasty in LA. See, Shaq and Kobe could have been put into any era, and they would still be two of the best players in the NBA. But putting them together in an era where everything is suited to them just seems unfair. And it was. especially when you put them under one of the best coaches in history in Phil Jackson. Not only did Phil have the heir to Jordan's throne in Kobe, who resembled him in almost every way, but he had the most dominant post player the league had seen since Wilt. Between the three of them, the Lakers won 67 games in Jackson's first season as a coach, as well as the championship, and again the next year. And then again, they won the year after that. Like Jordan's Bulls before them, the Lakers three-peated from 2000 to 2002, all without surpassing a pace of 94. And also, like Jordan's Bulls before them, they would have their own group of copycats following their lead. The fallout of their dynasties had the same outcome, league-wide chaos. After going 11-19 to start the 03 season, and then losing to the Spurs in the semifinals, the beef between Shaq and Kobe, which I covered in our Kobe video, had reached an all-time high.
You don't work, you don't get the ball. He said, throw me the ball. No. Work.
And even though the Lakers had been the team to beat so far in the 2000s, the championship window was once again wide open. So just like before, they went back to trying to recreate the success of recent champions, and just like before, they suffered the consequences. As if 1999 didn't teach us lesson, it only took 5 years for the basketball gods to remind the league that not everyone could be Phil Jackson. Kevin Garnett became the second player since the merger to win MVP despite a sub-55 true shooting percentage, only after Allen Iverson, who did it in 2001. To put it simply, the league was much less efficient. The Detroit Pistons became the third slowest team to ever win a championship, and the league as a whole was the slowest it had been since the 1999 season, making it the second slowest in history. Before we knew it, we were stuck in the middle of an era where it felt like time moved slower than reality. In 2005, something weird happened. Instead of copying, it seemed more like the NBA was heading in the right direction, but it never stopped. After the 1999 season, when the league hit all-time lows in pace and efficiency, the 2000 season was sort of a resurgence year, or if nothing else, a step in the right direction. The 2005 season was essentially the same thing. The special thing about it, in 2006 it happened again, and then again in 2007, and again in 2008. And you know why? It's because in each of those years, a different team won the championship. Thanks to coaches like Pop and D'Antoni, who found ways to create offense that was different, as well as the stat revolution, which shined light on what makes a good offense in basketball, we began to dig ourselves out of the gutter. Things were starting to move, and new roots were beginning to sprout. But despite making progress, there was still an awkward in-between phase. Teams wanted to commit to the movement, but the way it was being proposed, it had never been done before. It took one last shot in the dark to leave the darkest era of offense, or rather, a shot from 30 feet. In 2021, the league average pace is 112, up from the 110 it was last season. 2019 was the first time in over 3 decades that the league average pace broke triple-digit marks. In shooting percentages, you guessed it, league records. And analytics improve every single year, so teams are more and more aware of what creates a good offense. Before teams and players would fully commit themselves to this movement, it took a push. That's why Curry and the Warriors were so important. Before 2016, no other team had done what they'd done. No other team could win 73 games in a single season. No other team had attempted almost 2,600 threes, let alone hit nearly 42% of them. No other team had a unanimous MVP on their roster. No other team had a player who hit 402 threes in a season. Stephen Curry truly did affect the way the game is played. Every year after his first MVP season, the league average threes attempted rate went up by at least 2, which is the largest increase in over 30 years. The last time that happened was the 1995 season, and that was only because the NBA had shortened the distance of the three-point line. As the league started to catch up, we saw highs in threes attempted and made. The NBA is a copycat league, and whoever's at the top is bound to have their style of play replicated. So as soon as Curry began to shoot more threes, so did the rest of the league. Curry and the Warriors impacted the game of basketball like no other. They single-handedly took the three-point shot and turned it from a gimmick to a shot that's part of history.
Middleton for 3. Bang! Chris Middleton!
And in large part, thanks to them, we're watching the best era of basketball offense to date.
Lillard, long-range 3, and it's good!
The NBA right now is at the best it's ever been on offense, and from 98 to 04, it's hard to argue that the league has ever seen so little of it. But despite the lack of offense from the Deadball era, there's a lot of good to come from it. Players like AI, Shaq, Duncan, Kobe, Dirk, KG, and so many others walk so superstars today can run. You can't choose what era you play in. All you can do is play well regardless, and these players did just that. That begs the question though, should we punish players for the eras that they played in? Just because the stats tell us that the methods of then weren't effective, doesn't mean it wasn't the way that everyone was playing it. Should we rank relative to the era that they played in, similar to how we rank a player like Bill Russell or Jordan? It's because of the Deadball era that we are able to ask ourselves these questions. And basketball nowadays is better because of it. I want to shout out Icon on Hardwood Amino, since he's the one that made the blog which we turned into a script for this video. We cut out a lot of stuff, so if you want to go see the full version, the link is in the description, as well as the link to Hardwood. If you couldn't tell from the name of this channel, Hardwood Amino is the name of a website and app to talk all about basketball. There's polls to vote on, blogs to read, and quizzes to take. And fans have talked about whether Steve Nash is better than Jason Kidd. He's not. But either way, come by and hang out. Peace.